some of you may have heard me also tell the story of James Lowe, who was 51 years old. James has actually been here with me in New Hampshire also. Born with a cleft palate, prevented him from being able to speak, and he could have been fixed with a simple operation, but he had no health care coverage. And somebody finally fixed it. A great health care provider fixed it for him voluntarily when he was 50 years old. James Lowe lived 50 years in America, not able to speak because he had no health care coverage. And he reminded me so much of my own grandparents and the people that I grew up with, because he was humble and gracious and grateful that somebody had finally helped him. But I listened to his story. I still remember it vividly. We were sitting at picnic tables early in the morning. I listened to his story and I thought to myself, how long are we going to let drug companies and insurance companies run this country? You know, America doesn't belong to them. America belongs to us. And James Lowe finally got his voice back. Isn't it time for you to get your voice back in this democracy? Isn't that what this election is about? And I look at what's happening in this country that we all love so much. I look at what's happening in America and I see this picture. I see in America where last year ExxonMobil made $40 billion. $40 billion in 1 year. I look at America where the CEO of one of the largest health insurers in America made $200 million in 1 year. $200 million. I look at America where the top 1% of income earners took twice as much of America's income as they did 20 to 25 years ago. This is not hard to understand. These people have a grasp on your democracy. And at what cost? The cost is extraordinary damage to the middle class. The cost is American jobs. The cost are millions of Americans with no health care coverage. This is doing extraordinary damage to the promise of America being available to you and your children and your grandchildren. And I look at that picture of this country, and then I put it side by side with this picture. Tonight, 47 million of our own people will go to bed knowing if their child gets sick, they have to go to the emergency room and beg for health care. Women will tomorrow conduct their own self-examination, and just like Elizabeth, they'll find a lump in their breast. And they'll figure out that they have breast cancer. But unlike Elizabeth, who has great health care coverage, many of these women will have no health care coverage. Where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? You can't get chemotherapy in the emergency room. There's no such thing. All while CEO of health insurers are making hundreds of millions of dollars. Tomorrow morning, 37 million people will wake up in this country living in poverty and literally worried about feeding and clothing their children. I was in a shelter just a couple of weeks ago. Elizabeth was there with me. And we saw an amazing group of people. These were single moms, no place to live, with their children. This shelter had taken them in. But while we were there, I asked the people who ran the place, who were amazing too. I said, so do you ever have to turn families away? Yes. How often? Well, a few months ago, they turned 70, 75 families away in 1 month. And I said, were these single mothers? Yes. Did they have children? Yes. Some of them have as many as 3 or 4 children. I said, so when you sent them away, where did they go? Back to the street. Back to cars. Children living on the street and in cars in America. Tonight, 200,000 men and women who proudly wore our uniform and served this country patriotically, veterans, will go to sleep under bridges and on grates. Brothers and sisters, enough is enough. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to say, America's better than this. We are so much better than this. It is time for us to make sure that what our parents and grandparents gave to us is not squandered. This torch has been passed to us. It has been passed to our generation. And the only question is, will we meet our responsibility to our children, to our grandchildren? Because when we speak for millions of people who have no health care coverage, millions who live in poverty, for James Lowe and the millions like him who live in the darkness of America, not seen, not even known to exist by this government. When we speak on behalf of single moms who have no place to live with their children, and on behalf of veterans who are sleeping under bridges, when we do that, we rise up and we become a better nation. It says something about who we are. It says something about our character. And when people say to me, it sounds like this is personal to you, it is very personal to me. I don't have to read about this in a book. I don't have to have somebody explain it to me. I watched my grandmother, who had a 5th or 6th grade education, came from a family of sharecroppers. I watched her leave that house, walk to the mill, work her shift, and come back and take care of me. I watched my father get up for 36 years and go into that mill and work every day. I have no intention of standing quietly by and watch their work and their sacrifice be stolen away. I have no intention of standing quietly by and see the great middle class in this country, to see the working people who I grew up with. I was raised to believe that the men and women who I grew up with, who worked in the mill with my father, were worth every bit as much as the man that owned that mill. And if this is the America, that we believe in, if this is the America that we believe in, then it is time for us to stand together. It is time for us to say this promise of America that many of us have lived. It belongs to our children. It belongs to our grandchildren. And we'll fight for it. We are willing to stand up and fight for it. We will not forget those who came before us, who suffered and struggled and sacrificed to give us this chance, to give us this opportunity. You know, the truth is, and we ought to be telling the truth, you know, we got just a few hours before this primary. I am not the celebrity candidate. I am not the $100 million campaign. We've got 2 of those, and I'm not one of them. But what we learned just a few days ago in Iowa is you cannot buy elections. And what... I am the underdog in this campaign. I am the underdog tomorrow. I'll be the first to say it. But my underdog status is nothing compared to this extraordinary underdog that is the middle class in America, that are the veterans who are suffering, that are the millions who have no health care coverage. That's who this fight is about. It is not about me. It is about them. And we need you in this cause. We need you involved. We need you to get your friends, your neighbors, take them to the polls. If you've got time to make a few phone calls tonight, even though it's the national championship game tonight or tomorrow, we need you. We need you involved. We need you engaged. We need you volunteering. This is a movement, and it is a movement for change. It is a movement that's fighting for the future of our children and our grandchildren. We want to be able, when this is over, to spark a wave of change that begins here in New Hampshire, that spreads across America with a power that means it cannot be stopped. And when that wave of change is finished, which you began right here in the state of New Hampshire, every one of us are going to be able to look our children in the eye and say, we did for you what our parents and grandparents did for us. We made certain that we left America better than we found it, and that we gave you a better life than we had. Thank you all for being here. We need you in this cause. Stick with us in this. Let's take this party back. Let's take the White House back. And let's take America back. God bless you all. Thank you for coming.